Of the word for turban. We'll talk about that and more fun tulip facts as I sketch this little flower. So let's just turn the page and get started. Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning on a goodness, is it Monday morning already? It is Monday morning. Where did the weekend go? Remember when we used to have weekends? We used to watch Saturday morning cartoons and sleep in and do all that other cool stuff. Not anymore. On Monday mornings, I like to do a little thing where I pull a toy from the toy box and I draw it and I tell stories about it, a random object from the Random Object Randomogrifier, if you will. And I tell stories about it while we draw it. And today's random object is a tulip. Tulips are thought to be popular because the Dutch farms out there with all the tulips, but they've actually been popular for 6,000 years before they ever made it to the Netherlands because they're from Persia. And the Ottoman Empire, the Persians thought them to be a treasure and made it illegal to trade tulips outside of the Ottoman Empire. It was punishable by death in some situations, in some circumstances. But they eventually got over that, and they started trading with the Dutch, and introduced the Dutch to tulips, and the Dutch made a worldwide industry out of tulips. But the Persians had been growing tulips for 6,000 years prior to prior to introducing it to the Dutch.
Looks to me like the Persians got left out.
Well, I don't know if the Persians don't still grow tulips. We only know the Dutch have the Western market.
Yes, that's true.
I don't know. I can't tell you whether or not the Persians have the Eastern market. They certainly have the Middle Eastern market. But I can't tell you if that's still the case. If whether or not the Persians may still have the Eastern market, I honestly can't tell you because they don't. We don't have access to that information.
According to Mr. Google,
Yep.
the Persians do still have a vibrant tulip market, and Iran is home to numerous unique species, with 19 native to that region.
Yeah. See, that's something we wouldn't hear about here in the West because we don't get a whole lot of Iranian economy information, but we see pictures all the time of the tulip fields, the Dutch tulip fields. Tulips. What?
Yeah, so I'm gonna say closer to home in Dallas, just outside of Dallas, they give a huge tulip fields, a farm.
I may have to go see that. That sounds like a good motorcycle ride.
My friend Carrie used to go there every year. Get tulips.
That sounds like a good time. In the 1630s, tulips crashed the Dutch economy. They invented the futures market. There's no real record of the futures market prior to tulips, and people would invest money in tulips that had been planted but not harvested. That's why it's called the futures market. With the expectation that when the harvest came in, they would get their fortune back. You would be able to sell the tulips at a much higher rate, and get your fortune back. But the problem is that they were over hyping the tulips. It was like a a, a bubble market, like the housing industry or the .com industry. Everybody went crazy, mortgaging their house trying to buy into the tulip industry, and then when it crashed, people lost everything. So in the 1630s, the Dutch economy crashed because the tulips did not bring in as much money as they thought they were going to. But they were crazy. There were tulip bulbs going for thousands and thousands of guilders. There was one tulip in particular that sold, the bulbs sold for more than what you would pay for a house on the main thoroughfare there. There was a sailor. There's a known story about a sailor who came into the inn that he was staying at, and he found a what he thought was an onion sitting on the countertop, and he cut it up and he ate it with his soup, and it turned out to be a 6,000 guilder tulip. He could have bought a house. He could have fed his crew for a year with the amount of money that tulip was valued at. Could have fed his entire crew for a year. But I didn't see any record as to what happened to him. But it is a well-known story. But you see the tulips with the flame patterns and the color variations with the lightning strikes and the zigzag lines going through them of various colors, and those are the most rare tulips, and they were the most expensive tulips, and people sought to grow them and profit from them. And it turns out that was a virus that was spread by aphids, and it was killing the tulips. And each generation got weaker and weaker and weaker, which is what they think happened in the 1630s. They had the beautiful tulips, and then the next year the tulips didn't survive. And so
the people saw these unusually colored tulips, and they were actually just spreading disease.
That's right. Hey, Claudia. Claudia's in tulip. Claudia's in tulip country. Claudia probably tell us. Claudia could probably fill us in with all these details that we're not familiar with, like what happened to the sailor. Claudia is in tulip country. Can't talk, Arting. This is my favorite part of the process. This is the part that turns it from a couple of lines on the page to a dimensional drawing. And I just love this process. The only downside to this model, Safari did a really good job with their flowers, but I feel like they took the opportunity to use up all of their purple. Because so far this is the third flower we've done from this set, and they've all been purple. But Safari does a really good job of making these things look real. Let me dry this real quick, and we can add some color. Claudia's reinforcing what we talked about how they're from Turkey. The word for tulip. Now I don't know how to say this, but there was the uh, the the Turkish the the Turkish folks that introduced tulips to the West. I'm not sure how to say this word, but it's like their word for turban. And tulips were traditionally worn tucked into the turban, and so they had they were trying to communicate that it was a turban adornment, but the folks in the West took that word and mispronounced it, and it's like turban, turban, something to that effect. And I know I'm going to mess it up because one, it's Turkish, and two, I try to say every foreign word with a Spanish accent or German. So I know I'm messing it up, but the point of the story is that it got translated, it got captured as tulip, and that is how that is the name that got stuck to the organism. But yeah, they were popular in Persia for 6,000 years prior to being introduced to the Netherlands.
We have Ungawadaria vertical.
Hi, Bunga. Good morning.
Claudius says turban of what?
Like the turban, like the turban that they wear, that the Persians wore prior to being an Islamist nation, when they would wear turbans, as opposed to, I'm not really sure what you call the modern things that they wear. Do. So broken tulips, the virus that was spread by aphids caused what they came to refer to as broken tulips. And broken tulips are now illegal. You have to have a special permit to grow them because they don't want them infecting the crop. So but you have to have a special permit to grow them. And most people that do only grow them for historical value, because you can't consistently grow them without them eventually getting weak and dying, without the crop getting weak and dying. So but that's the big fear, is that they will once again crash the market.
They don't seem to last long.
Well, I mean, it's just a flower.
I know. But there's other flowers that you can put them in and arrange them and they last a lot longer than the tulips.
I don't know. Maybe Claudia can tell us how to make them last longer in a vase. Let me dry this real quick. Maybe you could look up how to make them last longer in a vase, and we could talk about it when we get back from drying. Yeah, Claudia, I'm not a fan of this color either. This is one of those colors. Claudia's in the chat talking about how she's wearing a shirt that's the same color as this tulip, and it's not her favorite color. I'm not a fan of this color either.
I think that's one of the things that we don't do is we don't give them things to make them last longer, we need to change their water, and people just add water to it.
Yeah. When you
that's what I read. Claudia probably knows more about that.
When you get them, do you cut their stems and put them immediately in the fresh water with tulip food?
I don't know. Claudia says cold water, not too high, 3 to 5 inches, and an inch of flour at the bottom, and refresh the water. If they're in the garden, they can last 1 to 3 weeks. Hot, humid weather will shorten their life. The bulbs can live 7 to 12 years. Wow. They're not my favorite flower. But probably because I've never had them. I've never missed them. I'm not Mr. Barker anyways. There you have it.
And yet you have one hanging on your wall in your living room.
Yeah, I like that too. It's lasting. Oh my. 16 years.
About that, yeah.
It's just a side note. I sit in this chair very often, and all of a sudden there's a duck over there in the corner.
Bato? What do you mean there's a duck?
What are those little ducks the kids hide around my house?
Oh my goodness, I thought you were telling me there was a duck in the yard or something.
No, one of those little ducks. I wonder how long that little duck's been there.
I don't know.
And I sit in this chair every day.
I don't know.
Those kids.
We're gonna cheat just a little bit today because I want a better highlight on that stem.
Claudia says it's the stem written in this way, S-T-E-M.
S-T-E-M? Yes, that's how you write stem. How do you say it in Dutch? All right. There are some 6,000 variations of tulip, and of those 6,000, 2,600 of them are commercially traded. It's a pretty big economy.
Yeah. Honey says they have stam, S-T-A-M, as the front of the tree, but flowers have a stele, S-T-E-E-L.
Yes. I get that. But we have a trunk for a tree and a stem for a flower, a stem for a plant. I didn't feel feel like the shadows were dark enough. So I'm just going to add some blue to it. Make sure everybody understands that that is in shadow. We got to wrap this up. We're out of time. Look how fast that went. I was going to say, look how fast that went. All right. I'm calling it. What is today? The 4th? 04. Oh, you know what today is?
And the 4th be with you.
It's Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Star Wars Day. And then tomorrow is Cinco de Mayo. And then the day after tomorrow is Revenge of the 6th. No, I don't need to dry that. It's done. We're done. That's all there was to it. Instinctively reached for the dryer. All right. So there is my version of it compared to the photograph. Let's see what it looks like from my perspective. From my perspective, so that's what I did today. Tomorrow, what do we have tomorrow? What is it? What is it? What is it? What could it be? The suspense. It's the suspense that gets you. Oh! What is this? This is not a plesiosaur. What is this? This is a elasmosaur. This is an elasmosaurus. I wonder if they're in the plesiosaur family. I don't know. It's a long-necked, deep-sea swimming dinosaur. Not a dinosaur because dinosaurs are on land, but it's a long-necked, deep-sea reptile. We'll talk about elasmosaurs tomorrow morning at 5:30 a.m. while I sketch this little long-necked dude at 5:30 a.m. Texas time tomorrow morning. So you may want to set your notification bell so you don't miss that. But guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Claudia, really happy you could visit with us today. Bunga Widari, I'm glad to see you this morning. You guys have made my day. This is my favorite part of my day when I get to art with my besties. I truly look forward to it every day. My camera is flickering, and that is quite distracting. But thank you so much. Be sure and tune in tomorrow. Same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel. And then we dance. We dance until somebody says they see me dancing, because when they see me dancing, I will know that the lag has caught up with the stream. That will mean that I won't get cut off mid-sentence. Everybody has a chance to say hello and goodbye to each other. You get a chance to click the clicky thingies this way if you're on the horizontal, or this way if you're on the vertical. But the most important thing